over the deadly brawl at Sydney Airport in 2009. March 22, 2009. Sydney Airport. A fight erupts in the arrivals hall. Terrified passengers dive for cover. Steel bollards are lifted and used as weapons. 10 minutes of chaos unfold. One man is left dead. This was not a terror attack. It was Australia's biker gangs declaring war in broad daylight. What happened next changed the country's legal system forever. This is not just a story about motorcycle clubs fighting over turf. It is the story of how one violent incident at one of Australia's busiest airports triggered a legal transformation that reduced civil liberties, drove criminals deeper underground, and helped build transnational drug empires worth billions. The Comancheros did not begin as a criminal organization. In 1968, a Scottish immigrant named William Jock Ross founded the club in Sydney after being inspired by a John Wayne Western. Ross, a former British Army engineer who served in Libya and Yemen, ran the club like a military unit. He declared himself supreme commander and forced members to perform weekly paramilitary drills. He even created an elite internal group called the Strike Force. Many members despised his authoritarian leadership. One former member famously said he would have joined the army if he wanted to spend his life marching around a backyard. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, the club's violent reputation grew. Ross led ambushes against rival clubs, especially the Knights. He hid in bushes along coastal roads with a rifle, shooting at rival bikers as they rode by. In one calculated attack, Ross invited the Knights to what he claimed was a keg party in the bush. When they arrived, the entire Comancheros membership was waiting to ambush them. The violence reached its peak on Father's Day, September 2nd, 1984. At the Viking Tavern in Milpera, a motorcycle swap meet turned into a battlefield. The Comancheros and the newly formed Bandidos, created by former Comanchero members who rejected Ross's leadership, had declared war. 19 armed Comancheros arrived first and took hidden positions. Ross planned a pincer movement inspired by tactics used in the Anglo-Zulu War. When 34 Bandidos arrived, gunfire erupted immediately. For 10 minutes, shots echoed across the parking lot, while police helicopters circled overhead. Families ran into the tavern for safety. When the gunfire stopped, 7 people were dead. 4 Comancheros, 2 Bandidos, and 14-year-old Leanne Walters, an innocent bystander killed by a stray bullet. 28 others were wounded. The bar staff continued serving beer throughout the entire massacre. The Milpera massacre became one of the largest court cases in Australian history. There were 63 murder convictions and 147 manslaughter convictions. Ross received a life sentence but was released after only 5 years due to a brain injury from a gunshot wound that left him nearly blind and unable to read or write. The biker gangs did not disappear, they evolved. By 2002, Ross had been replaced by Mahmoud Mikhail, a Lebanese immigrant who transformed the Comancheros into something far more dangerous. The club expanded internationally, opening chapters in Bosnia and Herzegovina by 2004. Meanwhile, Australia's biker landscape had shifted dramatically. In 1994, 6 major gangs, the Hells Angels, Outlaws, Bandidos, Rebels, Black Uhlans, and Nomads, signed the Australia 2000 Pact, agreeing to control organized crime by eliminating smaller clubs. This consolidation led to 35 murders between 1994 and 2000 and reduced the number of clubs from 178 to only 32. Excluded from this pact, the Comancheros grew even more aggressive. Then came March 22, 2009. On Qantas Flight 430 from Melbourne to Sydney, members of 2 rival clubs were seated near each other, Comanchero President Mick Howie and Hells Angels. President Derek Wainohu exchanged threats mid-flight. The tension escalated so badly that both sides texted reinforcements to meet them at Sydney Airport. Wainohu was traveling with Peter Zervas and his 29-year-old brother Anthony, returning from a meeting ironically intended to discuss ending their ongoing conflict. When the plane landed at 1:30 p.m., backup from both clubs was already waiting. As passengers walked into the arrivals area, pushing and shouting began. Someone yelled, "Come on, boys, let's go." What followed was described as one giant rolling ball of mayhem. 5 men grabbed steel bollards weighing 17 kilograms each and swung them as weapons. Anthony Zervas, who was not even a Hells Angels member, was beaten with a bollard and stabbed multiple times. He died in the arrivals hall while his brother cried, "Hang on, Tony." More than 50 travelers witnessed the murder. Airport security, unarmed and outnumbered, could not stop the violence. Federal police arrived only after the fight ended. 4 Comancheros were arrested in a taxi. Shortly afterward, Howie was charged with murder. In November 2011, he was found guilty, but the conviction was overturned in 2014. He later pleaded guilty to manslaughter and received a minimum sentence of 3.5 years. Howie's story ended violently. On February 15, 2018, he was shot dead outside a gym in Rockdale at age 37. 2 masked gunmen fled the scene. His assassination was widely believed to be retaliation for the airport killing. Revenge delivered 9 years later. The Sydney Airport brawl became the spark for sweeping political action. Prime Minister Kevin Rudd condemned the violence as unacceptable. The public demanded change. Within days, New South Wales Premier Nathan Rees introduced the Criminal Organizations Control Act 2009. It passed on April 3rd, just 12 days after the attack. The law gave police extraordinary powers to declare biker gangs as criminal organizations and ban members from associating with each other under the new rules. If 2 or more members of a declared organization were seen together more than 3 times in 3 months, they faced up to 2 years in prison for a first offense and 5 years for subsequent ones. Members lost licenses to work in industries such as security, towing, and vehicle repair. Firearm licenses were revoked. Queensland later introduced an even harsher law, the Vicious Lawless Association Disestablishment Act, VLAD, in 2013, which added mandatory extra prison time for gang-related crimes. Under the new laws, regular members faced mandatory 15-year sentences, while club officers faced up to 25 years. 26 biker groups were officially declared criminal organizations. Members were prohibited from gathering in groups of 3 or more, banned from licensed venues, prevented from operating clubhouses, and subjected to strict limitations on mobile phone use. One case showed how far these laws could reach. Joshua Carew was arrested while delivering pizza to a hotel where Rebels members happened to be present. Simply being seen with 2 gang members could result in charges. In another incident, David Chung, a non-club motorcycle rider with no criminal record, was arrested during a restaurant raid solely because known gang members were in the building. The laws were effective, but not in the way lawmakers intended. Former Bandito member Chris from Brisbane explained the shift. Instead of stopping crime, the anti-association measures pushed gangs further underground and encouraged more serious criminal activity. From 2016 to 2017, Queensland Police issued 230 consorting warnings to bikers. The following year, that number rose to 570. The crackdown led to another unintended consequence. International expansion. Australia began deporting non-citizen gang members under Section 501 of the Migration Act 1958. Between 2015 and 2020, approximately 1,000 offenders were deported to New Zealand, including 14 patched Comanchero members. New Zealand police warned this would generate more than $100 million in criminal activity over 5 years. Since 2016, gang membership in New Zealand has doubled to more than 8,000 members. The Comancheros used deportation as an opportunity. They established a New Zealand chapter using the incoming deportees to build global networks. They expanded throughout Southeast Asia, positioning themselves as major players in the methamphetamine trade. A 2019 United Nations report confirmed that outlaw motorcycle gangs from Australia and New Zealand had moved aggressively into international drug trafficking markets. The gangs went global. They formed alliances with Italy's 'Ndrangheta Mafia and Mexico's Sinaloa cartel. Small Pacific Island nations such as Fiji, Tonga, and Vanuatu became key transit hubs for drug shipments moving between the Americas and Australia. These islands, often reliant on larger regional powers, provided ideal stopover points for traffickers. The profits were enormous. Australian biker gangs are estimated to earn $1.7 billion annually from drug trafficking, accounting for roughly 1/3 of the national drug trade. Drug prices in Australia are among the highest in the world. A kilogram of cocaine sells for about $250,000 in Australia, compared to around $16,000 in Texas. These high prices make Australia an extremely attractive market for international cartels. In December 2024, police made the largest cocaine seizure in Australian history. Authorities intercepted 2.34 tons of cocaine valued at $760 million, allegedly imported by a syndicate with Comanchero links. The vice president of the club's Brisbane chapter was among those arrested. The cocaine, packed into 51 bales weighing 40 kilograms each, was being collected from a mother ship 460 kilometers off the Queensland coast. The smuggling attempt failed when the collection boat broke down near Fraser Island. This was not an isolated event. In 2020, New Zealand police intercepted conversations involving Comanchero acting national commander Sione Fakaosilea discussing plans to import 600 kilograms of methamphetamine from South Africa. The Comancheros had built trafficking connections across multiple continents. The Rebels Motorcycle Club, once Australia's largest with over 70 chapters, experienced turmoil of its own. Longtime national president Alex Vella had his visa cancelled while overseas in 2014, sparking internal disputes. In 2024, more than 30 Rebels members surrendered their patches following conflict between National President Damien Vella and Western Australia chapter boss Carl LeBrook. At least 6 Rebels members in Western Australia defected to the Comancheros, a move that shocked the criminal underworld. Fear of the Comancheros intensified. Nearly 20 people have been killed in Sydney in recent years in gang-related violence linked to the group. Shootings occurred in broad daylight. Homes were attacked with AK-47 rifles. The scale of violence reached levels not seen previously in Australian organized crime. Critics argued the anti-biker laws violated civil liberties, including freedom of association, freedom of expression, and the presumption of innocence. Australian Council for Civil Liberties President Terry O'Gorman warned that there was nothing stopping authorities from declaring any organization a criminal group. Under some state laws, even trade unions and political parties lacked protection. Research also suggested the laws had limited impact. Between April 2008 and April 2014, Comanchero members were convicted of 4,323 criminal charges, yet during the same period, approximately 2.5 million offenses were reported to Queensland police. Gang members accounted for only 0.17% of all reported crimes. A 2016 task force review found that police had overstated the role of outlaw motorcycle clubs in organized crime. Despite these findings, the laws remain in place. The 2009 Sydney Airport brawl fundamentally changed Australia's approach to organized crime. It shifted the focus from prosecuting criminal activity to criminalizing association powers originally created to fight terrorism were redirected toward motorcycle clubs. A legal framework emerged that could, in theory, be applied to any group the government identified as a threat. The biker gangs adapted. They abandoned traditional biker culture, patches, denim, and Harley-Davidsons, in favor of athletic clothing, performance-enhancing drugs, and designer brands. They absorbed the media-driven gangster image, evolving from motorcycle enthusiasts into sophisticated, global drug traffickers. The laws created to dismantle them instead pushed them into innovation. Today, the Comancheros operate across Australia, New Zealand, and Southeast Asia, with connections extending to Europe and South America. They have transformed from a small club founded by a Scottish immigrant who enjoyed Western films into a transnational criminal empire generating billions in revenue. The body of Anthony Zervas on the floor of Sydney Airport's arrivals hall on March 22, 2009, represented more than one man's death. It marked the end of Australia's old approach to gang violence and the rise of a surveillance-heavy system that granted the government unprecedented power over personal association. It marked the moment Australian organized crime expanded beyond national borders. The conflict between the Comancheros, the rebels, and the Hells Angels continues today, but it is no longer fought in airport terminals. It now takes place through encrypted communications, international shipping routes, Pacific Island smuggling networks, and in government offices where new laws are drafted. The Sydney Airport brawl lasted 10 minutes. Its consequences will last for generations. The question remains, did the legal revolution that followed make Australia safer, or did it unintentionally create stronger, more sophisticated, and more profitable criminal organizations operating beyond the reach of any one nation? One thing is certain, everything changed that day.